Thanks, Tom.
At least we didn't have you follow an animal act or a kid act, but try your best.
I mean, that's a tough act to follow. And what a tremendous treat that was to have Penny come here, and a great surprise. But I think with our next panel, we're going to be able to follow Penny Chenery with the group we've got. It's a unique theme. We're going to start exploring relationships, and that unique relationship known to mankind. I don't mean between mother and child or husband and wife. Yep, that between owner and trainer. You've probably heard all about it. It's a one-of-a-kind relationship, and we're going to get right into it this afternoon. So first of all, we're going to bring up the owners. Without further ado, his degree in chemical engineering came from UK, led him to the helm of Monsanto Company, and eventually to the chairman of SEMI. He and his wife Beth acquired Derby Lane Farm right here in Lexington. He's raced many good horses, including Dr. Zick, who won the Vinery Madison here at Keeneland. Please join me in welcoming Roger McDaniel. Welcome, Roger. Take a seat. Pick a color.
Yeah. I think red will do.
Our next panelist has been a thoroughbred owner for over 15 years. His first win came in 1999, and he races under the name of Bushwood Stable. And if you're familiar with the movie Caddyshack, that's the name of the country club, and that kind of underscores the fun that he and his partners have in Bushwood Stable. He spent 20 years as an owner, and as an owner and executive of investment advisory, specializing in investment strategies. He is the owner of Better Talk Now, who won the Breeders' Cup Turf in 2004, and has said that experience was one of the most exciting times for he and his family. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Brent Johnson. Welcome, Brent. Take a seat. Our next panelist graduated Ohio State University College of Veterinary Medicine. He works closely with major sale consignors in central Kentucky, and he used his 40 years of experience specializing in yearling, wheeling, and mare conformation and evaluation soundness. In addition to medically evaluating thoroughbreds for others, he is an owner and breeder himself. He has been a co-bred significant stakes winners, including the champion sprinter Informed Decision, Macho, and Normandy Invasion, just to name a few. With his wife, veterinarian Dr. Nancy Cole, and son Ben, they operate a small nursery here called Corner Woods Incorporated. Please welcome Dr. Charles Kidder. Chuck. Take a seat, Chuck. Our last and final owner of this panel is Chief of Surgery at the University of Louisville and Vice Chairman of the Department of Surgery at the University of Louisville as well. He has been actively involved in thoroughbreds since 1975, and he was part of a team that campaigned that great filly and mare, Mrs. Revere. She won 11 races, including 8 stakes races, and there's a Grade 2 stakes race named at Churchill Downs in her honor. He has numerous roles at the Jockey Club, Horse Racing Commission. He's Vice Chairman of the Thoroughbred Owners and Breeders of America and chairs the American Graded Stakes Committee. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. David Richardson. Great. Feel free to take a seat. I'm going to stand off to the middle here. Okay, great. Now I've got you all up here. It's going to be like the newlywed game. I'm going to ask you questions. Then we're going to bring out the trainers and see if they match up, okay? You ready? Oh, no, I'm just kidding. Look, first of all, seriously, I want to thank you for being here, taking time out of your busy schedule. And believe me, this is going to be a great panel. I pay close attention. There's some great knowledge and insight up here, a wealth of experience from all aspects of the industry. Let's start with the first question, selecting a trainer. You always hear about the owner-trainer relationship. When you're getting into the game of ownership, how does one go about selecting a trainer? Brent, I'll start with you.
Well, I think probably the first important thing is to figure out exactly what your goals are as an owner. There's lots of ways that you can go about this. I mean, you can claim horses, you can try and have fun, claim horses, you can look to buy yearlings, 2-year-olds. There's lots of ways to go. So I think the first thing would be to try to figure out exactly what your goal is, how many horses, those types of things, and then seek out a trainer that would match up with your goals. Find a trainer that is successful in that area, because, you know, a trainer's not always the same. I mean, they have a lot of different approaches. You know, some trainers are more in the claiming end. Some trainers have, you know, are more with the younger horses. So turf, dirt, there's lots of different methodologies to approach in their approach. So I think that if once you kind of figure out what your goals are, then you seek out a trainer that can match up with those. And then you have to go through, I think, kind of a research process and an interview process to try to, you know, get as much information as you can. I would suggest probably meeting trainers at their barn. I think that's kind of a key component to me, because you can learn a lot about the organization, how they go about their business, what they have help-wise and things like that. And I think then you're mostly looking for somebody that you can communicate with and that you can grow through your relationship to have trust, because there's going to be a lot of things that in a relationship owner-trainer that you don't really have hands-on access to, and you're really going to need to be able to trust the information that you get from your trainer.
Roger, I'll ask you the same question. Some of the factors in selecting a trainer, what do you look for?
Well, I certainly agree with what you said. When I first got into racing, a friend of mine asked me if I would like to go in with he and another guy and buy some claimers. And our business objective was to buy ones that were so cheap that if they couldn't run, we would give them to the Boy Scouts. So I gave him a $5,000 check, asked my wife to kiss the money goodbye, and then after a year, believe it or not, it only cost $400. So the trainer that we selected was one that was suited for that business objective. And then when I moved here, I decided that I wanted to buy a better quality of horse. And I started just asking around different people. I came to Keeneland, asked them about getting a trainer. But actually the way that I met Joan was my next door neighbor, the one who owns a farm next to me, gave my wife half of a horse named a wee gift. Well, I was buying horses and spending money on them, and my wife and my neighbor, with Joan training, won with a wee gift, which was free. And I thought, maybe she's the one who should be training my other horses. So that's how we met. But you heard this morning, several people said, ask people. And everybody, I think, in this business is willing to help you. And ask more than one. As you heard this morning, you don't always get the whole truth from any one person. But if you ask a number of people, you probably will see the whole picture.
Doc, do you echo those sentiments? What would you do about finding a trainer?
Sure.
I mean, do you just pick up the phone and blind call somebody, or do your research? How do you go about finding a trainer?
Well, I've been doing this a long time, and had some family that trained horses. So I'd been around horses before I owned them for quite a bit. I think one of the things that's important, though, is that probably not one size fits all. I don't try to give claiming horses to Bill Mott. I don't. What we try to do is to figure out, do they deserve to have that green towel with the white diamond, you know, on their backs, because, you know, he's a Hall of Fame trainer. Not that he wouldn't do a good job with claiming horses, and I suspect if I sent him one, or a horse that I, you know, frankly didn't think might do at a top level, but to me that doesn't make good economic sense. Doesn't use the best of his time or mine or my money, even though he might be willing to do it, probably because we've been together a long time. So I think as you get a few horses, you probably, you know, I think what you heard this morning, it was awfully high-end stuff, and what you really often are going to need is start at a little lower expectation. First 4 horses I owned, 3 of them were stakes winners, and I knew enough about the law of averages to know that would catch up with me, and boy did it. And so, you know, but I've had about 60 trainers through the years, and often it's for a purpose, and so I think, and I've found them all fine. And I don't mean that that's necessarily, you know, the way you're going to find it, but I, you know, say go to the barn. Is the barn clean? Does it look good? Do you like the people? If I don't like them or think they've got a bad attitude about the way they're going to treat horses, I I don't care how much they win, I wouldn't want to have horses with them. So I think if you have very many horses, you might need more than one type of trainer, frankly.
Chuck?
Same as everybody has said, and I guess I try to handicap where I hope my horse is going to reach what level. And then I pay attention to what circuit does each trainer go on. And so then, over the years, I've developed personal relationships with them through the horse sales and stuff. And so I just kind of slot them that way. Like, this one needs to go to fairgrounds. I think this one would be good in Indiana, just.
I think the underlying
Personality is a big key.
Right, the underlying theme here is do homework and personality. And so that leads me to my next question. Now we've hired a trainer. Communication, I think, is key, correct? I mean, we've talked about that and heard about it earlier this morning, communication between an owner and trainer. Chuck, I'll start with you here. In your personal experience, how often do you communicate with a trainer? Is it daily? Is it weekly? Is it as needed? How often do you communicate? And if there is a communication breakdown between an owner and trainer, when does that typically happen?
Well, to start with, I had to learn how to text.
Okay.
They're not going to answer a voicemail, and they're not going to email you. So once the texting came along, that was easier just to pop a question. But I would say it's as needed. And then as you get closer to a race, though, you're talking more about finalizing those plans. But again, before we've even started, I've kind of told them that, say, this filly is breeding stock quality to me, and so just don't talk to me about a claiming race. If she's not good enough at your level of training, then the filly will move, whether I just bring her back or not. So there's the old joke too about no trainer. You don't want a trainer to call you early in the morning because you just presume it's bad news. So we try to temper the time of the day, and I'm respectful of their time. I don't try to call them till 9:30 or 10, say, to where I know their real busy time is over with. Yeah.
Dr. Richardson, what about you as far as communication? Does it differ with different trainers upon their communication skills, when they call, or how busy they are, whether they have a lot of horses in that afternoon?
Sure.
What's your experience?
Yeah, I like to sort of know what the horses are doing. I'm fairly hands-on. If the horses are around Kentucky, particularly if they're in Churchill, when I live in Louisville, then I go a lot. I mean, I do a lot of communication with assistants, with Mott's assistants, for example, who I've known for a long time. And again, I've been to horses with Bill for 30-some years, so it's a little different kind of thing. I jokingly, he jokes that he's the great communicator, and his phone skills are not the best, but text. I never thought I'd see Mott. He riding on his lead pony texting people. It's a heck of a deal, but say texting's a good thing. I think some people overestimate that, or to my opinion, as long as you know somebody's taking good care of your horse and you're comfortable with what's going on, I don't know that you need to talk to them all that much. But again, that's also part of the fun of it too, and I think you have to balance it all out.
What do you think, Brent? I mean, especially we've been talking about text, and now you see people with their phones taking videos, and next thing you know, your horse is posted on YouTube working, public workouts.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that it depends on a lot of times where the horse is in the process. So right now, if we have a 2-year-old that is getting closer to the races, I mean, for the first couple months, I may just text with Graham after I see that the horse has worked and say, how did he do? If there's anything to talk about, we can talk about it, but generally just go by text. As you get closer to the races, where you're trying to decide exactly where you're going to run and what level you're going to run at, I think the communication starts to pick up a little bit there. But I think it is something that you do have to think about as far as, being considerate that they may have, the trainers may have another, 50 owners, and they're all trying to communicate. So I agree with the as-needed basis, but I also think that you want to make sure that you feel comfortable that when you need the time to communicate, that you're going to be able to get it. So I don't think, it sounds like I don't have quite as many horses as the other guys up here, and I think the most that I've ever had in training with Graham is 6 or 8. But at that time, I had 3 horses that were running in stakes races and a number of horses that there was a lot to discuss. So one day I called him and I said, look, I need to come up and have lunch, and talk, they had been giving me, him and Anita, his wife, had been giving me a hard time about how much I had been calling. I said, well, let me just come up and we'll have lunch and we'll go over these things so I can get this stuff clear. And when I got up there, I had a folder and I had put together a couple of just phony pie charts, and I pulled them out of the folder and put them in front of him and like put it over. I go, okay, so what are we going to do here? You know, he's looking at me like, what are we talking about? So, but the point is that when I felt like I needed some time, and I said, you know, I need to get, you know, hour and a half of your time and come up there. He was available, and I think that is really important. You know, you need to be able to communicate with a trainer. I had one trainer before Graham, and one of the comments, I came at the racing from the handicapping side. I had watched races for 20 years before I owned a horse, and you know, that's the one area that I felt comfortable with, is looking at where to spot horses. And I had suggested a starter allowance race, and the response to me was, I wish my owners would keep their nose out of the condition book. And I knew at that point that that wasn't going to be a relationship that was going to work. And I think you just have to really be aware of that you can learn a lot about how they communicate and what their interests and your interests, do they align. That's important.
It's like any relationship.
Absolutely.
Give and take, right?
It is. Absolutely.
Roger, your experience?
Well, Joan trains here from April through October, and my favorite way of communicating is to go out to the track when she has horses jogging in the morning and just talk to her. When she goes back to Florida, then it's text and phone calls. But I've always been a hands-off manager. And once we get agreement on what we want to do with the horse, I'm not one who's going to be communicating a lot.
All right, we want to thank you for your tremendous insights there. Now the trainers get a chance to defend themselves. We're going to bring them up here just a second. Now I'm going to let each of you bring your trainer up and be as descriptive as you feel free. David, I'll start with you.
My trainer's Bill Mott. I've had horses with Bill since 1982, I think. We first started. I was young. He was really young. And Bill's a great trainer. He thinks like a horse, I think he is part horse. We talked about horses and their DNA, but I think with Mott, that may really be true. Bill is a great friend and all. I don't like for him to call me because generally it's bad news when he calls, but we talk a lot on Sundays just occasionally about politics or this or that. I won't tell you his political beliefs, but he is a great horseman and really deserves all the good that's happened to him, and I'm just real proud to be his friend.
Bill, come on up. I'll back that up. I'm not taking favoritism here. I actually worked for Bill for 7 years, and a quick story. I arrived as a fresh-faced Englishman on the boat in Miami back in 1992, showed up at his barn. He knew I was coming, and I got a job with him. And he looked to me in the eye and he said, Simon, this job is so easy, believe me. You're going to love it. I see the palm trees, the sea, the sky coming from a wedding. And he goes, you only have to work half a day. I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, 5 to 5. The other half is all yours. True story. Chuck, why don't you introduce your trainer?
All right, I met my trainer, Dallas, 1997. We had a homebred that had sold well as a yearling, sold really good as a 2-year-old, and we're really excited about him. He was bought for the Lewises, and Dallas was an assistant at that time with D. Wayne Lucas. So the horse showed up at Churchill, and of course my wife and I wanted to go over there and see this Graham specimen that we had bred out of a young mare, and had bred her mother also. So we get over there, and I introduce myself to Dallas, and we're in that little saddling paddock under cover, and if you just turned a hose on Churchill Downs for 30 minutes, we stood there with Dallas and the horse. And so didn't know if they're going to cancel the races, whatever. But so when I got looking for a trainer later, I thought, well, I can talk to that guy. I can get along with him. So we've had a great time with Dallas.
Dallas, where are you? Come on up.
He didn't follow directions. He got to the back.
While Dallas makes his way up here, now we'll move along to Brent.
Actually, Graham's wife, Anita, helped me with this.
Oh, this
I really didn't know what to do with this. I haven't seen this one. please welcome to the stage a man that truly needs no introduction, a world-renowned trainer, Kentucky Derby winner, a prince among men, father of the year, doctor of love. I'm not sure that's that relevant here, but and the hardest working man in the horse business, Graham Motion.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I wanted
Graham
to do
Motion.
my horses.
Coming up, Graham. Graham, come on up. And finally, Roger, why don't you introduce Joan?
Joan Scott is both my horses trainer and my teacher. What I don't know about horses would fill an encyclopedia, and she is the one who makes most of the judgments on the horses, and it's been a pleasure to be working with her.
Joan Scott, ladies and gentlemen.
She seems like a good girl.
All right, when everybody's up here, so what we're going to do now, the owners have sent in a few of their favorite moments. What we're going to do is show a clip of a clip of a race for each team, and then if the trainers after the clip could describe the experience with the owner before the race, after the race, and post-race, and we'd like to get a sense of how you approach these successes as a team. So we're going to start with Graham and Brent. Let's roll the clip, please. I think it's coming.
Must have been dark out.
Yeah. There we go.
And they're off in the Vinery Madison.
Oh, that's us.
Dr. Zick and Whitty have early speed.
Yeah, this
By
is
Majesty
Roger and
there
John.
toward the inside. Informed decision up on the outside, heading onto the main track. Then direct line and a gap of 3.5 more lengths back to Star Larks, who's the trailer here in the early going. Dr. Zick gets over to the rail, leads at 3 parts of a length. Whitty hard held there in second between horses in the early stages of the race as they head for the far turn. Flanked by defending champion Informed Decision in her season's debut. She's third on the outside, just over 2 lengths off the lead. Dubai Majesty fourth back toward the rail, joined there by Direct Line on the outside and Star Larks at the back. 22 and 4/5 seconds the time for the opening quarter, and Dr. Zick guides the field into the far turn, leads Whitty a length and a half. Informed Decision still third up on the outside. Dubai Majesty fourth back toward the inside. Direct Line still alongside her, but still fifth. Star Larks is sixth and last. They're coming to the quarter pole, and Dr. Zick is still the leader. Dr. Zick a length and a half to Whitty. Dubai Majesty. Informed Decision still fourth off the far turn, still 3 lengths off the lead, but here she comes now, set down for the drive on the outside, but she's got to get Dr. Zick. Dr. Zick stubborn past the 8th pole. Dr. Zick by 3. Dubai Majesty up the rail to second, then Informed Decision and Whitty past the 16th pole. The Vinery Madison is all Dr. Zick at 15-1 for Kent DeSormo. Dubai Majesty second, Informed Decision was on third, Whitty finished fourth. The official winner of Keeneland's featured 8th race, the 9th running of the Grade 1 Vinery Madison, number 4 Dr. Zick, owned by Derby Lane Farm of Roger McDaniel, owned also by James Tom, Marette Farrell, and Joan Scott. Trained by Joan Scott, Kent DeSormo, the winning jockey. On the turf course, the trophy presentation for the Vinery Madison being made by Tom Lute.
All right, so Roger and Joan. Joan, why don't you explain some of the experiences and the thought processes before the race, during the race, and post-race?
We had another race possibly picked out to run that weekend. And at entry times, it looked like the Vinery was going to come up a little bit softer than we anticipated. So we, actually Roger was the one, if I can run at Keeneland, I want to run at Keeneland. So we put her on the van, we'd been in Florida, and sent her up. And she ran a great race for us.
That was a tremendous effort. And leading up to the race, how much are you communicating the week of? I mean, we've talked about communication, but as you get closer to the race.
Right, and deciding on what race to run in, we discussed things a lot, you know, with a plan. We had plan A and plan B, what we wanted to do. So close to race time, we discussed things quite a bit.
And then talk about post-race.
Oh, we just celebrated, drank champagne, that's what we did. But then you think about where you're going to go from there, of course. You discuss that, and that's where I really like to keep my owners. They stay involved, because everyone has a goal, what they want to do. And if the owners would like to head to a certain direction, if we think that we're capable of that, that's wonderful. We have to keep things in perspective. But I think everybody should have an input, like who to ride or where to go and things like that.
Is there like a cooling out period? I mean, the highs are so high. Well, I mean, the lows are low and the highs are high in the sport. But is there kind of a cooling out period? I mean, you win a race like that and you have all these grandiose plans. Then maybe 3-4 days later you come back down.
Oh,
to reality.
absolutely. When you're, after you get your trophy, they're interviewing you. Where are you headed to next?
Yeah.
I'm like, goodness, let's just pull her out and go from there.
I think for at least a month, I had a smile on my face.
All right, appreciate the insight. Okay, let's try and see if we can get Graham and Brent now, their clip. Can we roll that, please?
Late start there for Powers Court. He spots them a couple lengths as they leave the starting gate. Down the back stretch, and as expected, Star Over the Bay makes the early lead, and he makes it easily. Star Over the Bay in front. Tyler Bays, once that lead has been established, he eases them down a bit to lead by 3. Struck the stage, now up to be second. Kitten's Joy is in the clear, running third in the early going here. Magistretti, a little keen, comes on through in between horses, up to be 4th. Request for parole, down on the fence and saving ground 5th. A late start has put Powers Court back in 6th position and rating. And it's another 2 back to a hard-held Mouston Far. And Better Talk Now also on the stout restraint as Star Over the Bay takes him past the stands for the first time. Star Over the Bay able to negotiate a comfortable first quarter in 24 4/5 seconds. He settles into an easy gallop here, just loping along on a big uncontested lead. He's 5 lengths clear over Strut the Stage. Kitten's Joy, the 3-5 favorite, still reserved while running along in 4th. Mouston Far, well in hand while 5th. Powers Court on the outside of Request for Parole, still at the back of the pack. Better Talk Now is covered up in behind horses. Right alongside him, Mouston Far. So it's been all Star Over the Bay so far. Loose on the lead, and he sails through 3/4 of a mile in 1:13 4 on an unchallenged lead. He's 6 lengths in front as they begin that final run down the backstretch. Strut the Stage is second by 2 lengths. On the outside, Kitten's Joy, now in good striking position. He's come off cover, but there goes Powers Court. Powers Court with a very aggressive move with 4 furlongs to go. So they race past the half-mile pole, and that lead has evaporated. Star Over the Bay and Powers Court powers past. Powers Court takes the lead with a decisive thrust as they move into the far turn. Star Over the Bay trying to get back in it. He's under a drive, has now dropped 2 lengths behind. Kitten's Joy is called on for his best with 3 furlongs to go. Magistretti's right alongside him, and Better Talk Now is coming with a big rally on the outside as Powers Court comes off the turn with the lead. Kitten's Joy all-out drive. Better Talk Now continues a sustained rally, but he shifts in, and Magistretti had to take up there. Also trouble for Kitten's Joy into the final furlong now, and Better Talk Now has taken the lead. Powers Court and Kitten's Joy, and they're coming down to the finish, and it is Better Talk Now who is under the line first. He finishes first by 2. Kitten's Joy second. Powers Court.
Put it come down. Put it come down.
And I think that before I ask you, Graham, I think that, we've watched a lot of races here this morning, and that's one thing about this sport. I think it never gets old. You can, what's that race from 10 years ago now? And it's like, I think everybody in here and us who have probably seen it, 10, 15 times, in Graham's case, it never gets old. And I think that's one of the attractions into horse ownership. You can look at that, and it's like you're looking at it for the first time.
I've watched it a few times.
Sure. It never gets old. Graham, explain your relationship with Brent and your thought processes before a race like that, and eventually winning one of the biggest races on the world stage, the Breeders' Cup Turf.
Yeah, that was my first big winner. It was the first time I'd ever been to the Breeders' Cup. It's funny because I didn't know Brent had picked that. I should have figured he would have picked that race, but we had a lot of discussion that week because he actually didn't work very well leading up to that race, and I was very disappointed, depressed, whatever you want to call it. Pretty much looking to talk Brent out of it, and Brent's a handicapper, as he said earlier. I'm more of the horseman. I'm a terrible handicapper. He's a very good handicapper. So we had a lot of back and forth that week. It was a big move for me to send a horse to Breeders' Cup off of a bad work. I wasn't that crazy about doing it, but Brent kept looking at the numbers and looking at the field, and it was a decision that we came to together mutually to take a shot, and he was 27-1 that day and pulled off one of the biggest races of certainly my career. So It just goes to show how it can work.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great example and pretty much honest insight, really.
Yeah, the communication was very important in that instance because it was one, he had worked great up until the last work before the race, and then Graham was like, I don't know, he just wasn't, he didn't really work as well, and so we're like, okay, well, let's see how he comes out of it the next day. I mean, I felt actually very comfortable that he fit in the race, but obviously if he's not going to run his best race, he's not going to be competitive. So what we talked over and over again over the weekend, Graham, he pulled blood on him. He went over him with a fine-tooth comb, could not find any reason why he would have worked poorly from a veterinary standpoint, and that was really the key. I mean, if we had found anything that would have indicated, yeah, okay, we see now why he breathes poorly, I think it would have been very different. But we basically, we talked a lot over that weekend, and each time he would check something out, it's like, no, it's not an issue. And a couple days after the breeze, he was galloping fine, and we really didn't decide to do it until like the Monday or Tuesday of entries.
So I arrive at Lone Star, and Brent's sitting at the barn on a straw bale, waiting for me to get there. It was quite a
ready to go.
I mean, like I said, that's insight that you don't really hear if you're a casual fan from the outside. How much more precious was the win now with knowing all what went on beforehand, and you win a race like that, having the ups and downs leading up to it?
Yeah, I mean, huge. Also, what you don't see in that, there was a 5-minute inquiry.
A lot of sweat there.
Yeah. It was an extremely, that was, we'd just gotten to know each other. We've become best friends. Our families are best friends since then. It's been this horse actually ran 5 more times in the Breeders' Cup.
Yeah,
almost
5.
pulled off another win. So, it was a great story. It was a very special time for us. And he took us to Dubai. He took us to Japan. We had some amazing trips with that horse.
Anita said that was one of your best training jobs. All right, thanks very much. The last clip now for Chuck and Dallas. Can we roll that, please?
And they're off. Austin Storm breaks sharply for the lead, through from the inside, quite a ruckus. Then it's Speedy Sunrise, Solid Platinum from the extreme outside with Fat Chance. Austin Storm is in front, has it by 2.5. Quite a ruckus is second. On the outside, that's Speedy Sunrise in third. 3 back to Fat Chance in fourth. Crossfield is fifth, Solid Platinum now 6th by a head. Papa Sid's Girl runs 7th. Then it's Unity, Would You Be Mine, and Factory Reject the trailer. Satiable, 22 flat for the opening quarter. Boston Storm, Speedy Sunrise on the outside is second. Quite a Ruckus is third, 1.5 lengths. Fat Chance moves to the outside, gains ground in fourth. Also moving up in the center of the track, Solid Platinum with a furlong to run. It's Speedy Sunrise on the outside, quite a ruckus. Here comes Solid Platinum on the extreme outside. Speedy Sunrise and Solid Platinum. Solid Platinum by a head over Speedy Sunrise. Quite a ruckus third, photo for fourth. And in the winner's circle, the 12 Solid Platinum. 4-year-old filly by Mr. Greeley out of 4 a night. Owned by Charles Kidder and John Griggs, trained by Dallas Stewart. Winning rider, Brian Hernandez.
Dallas, talk about your relationship with Chuck and what goes into, taking a horse from training to a win like that.
Well, you can see that Chuck's family was there. I don't know if you can see it, but his wife and his mother and other family members, and a lot in this game, family is a big part of it, that our families go to the races and participate. Some of us, they're lucky that their family works with them, but it's a great game, and it's great to have owners like Chuck that you can rely on and trust, and even at the sales, he's here at the sales, and we trust one another when we talk to each other, and it's just a great relationship.
And this is a relationship that's built up over time.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we met each other when I was working for Wayne, and it was just always an easy relationship. He's not a guy that requires a lot of phone calls, or like he said, you really don't like to get a phone call unless it's like right before a race, you know, hey, we're on, this is what's happening. But, you know, him and his family, they're great to train for. And at the sales, if you're looking to buy horses, you know, he's selling horses. He can tell you something about one that he really likes on the farm, and you know, maybe that'll work out. But a lot of this stuff I find in racing is relationships.
Chuck, and real quick before we get to Bill and David, winning a race like that, it doesn't matter really how big or small the race is.
No,
The thrill
I was
just the same.
thinking about that with these Breeders' Cup races and stuff, is that when the event is that you're in a race, doesn't matter the track to me. You take your family, dinner is always better after the win, and the drinks taste better. And you smile for the next couple of days. It's like, all right, well, maybe we've got a stakes filly on our hands now. Or something.
Yeah,
I think that was an allowance, so we were building her up at that time.
And she broke her maiden at Saratoga, correct?
She broke her maiden in Saratoga first start. That was huge.
So that was huge.
Out there.
Yeah.
Also, she was so fast, he said, I can't get her to work slower than 47 flat. And we're like, you got to be kidding me. But so having said that, she stress fractured 3 times.
Yeah,
and then she chipped, but every time she came back a little better each time.
And then she broke her maiden at Saratoga.
So we persevered too, that we weren't doing anything to hurt her.
They didn't give up on me. That was
We
good.
didn't give up. And so she actually raced through her 5-year-old year, and she carried the first Tappet to victory. She was pregnant to Tappet.
Wow, tremendous.
That's cool.
That's great.
So,
All right, let's cue up our last video. That's for Bill and David.
And they're off. La Confederacion leaving the gate first. But on the outside, Fanjica will have early speed, and Danish is also flashing speed. But Jose Santos reins her in to let Fanjica lead the way into the first turn. La Confederacion right there on the inside, running in second. Danish is in between horses. And on the outside, Memories up close to the pace and running in fourth. Le Latois fifth and behind horses. Market Booster alongside her sixth. Yenda's seventh on the outside. Tiffany's Taylor is eighth. Northern Emerald ninth toward the inside. 3 lengths back to Duda, who trails the field as Fanjica leads the opening quarter over the soft going. Went in a smart 23 4/5 seconds. Memories is just off the pacemaker, prompting now in second. 2.5 lengths back to Danish, who's rating in third. Another length and a half to La Confederacion, who's settled down now 6 lengths from the front. Market Booster alongside her, kept within striking range of the front runners. Down inside it's Le Latois now, who's making some progress. And to her inside, it's Northern Emerald, who moves up a couple positions. Then Tiffany's Taylor, who's alongside Yenda, another 4 lengths back to the trailer Duda. They ran a half in 48 4/5 seconds. Fanjica still in control as they move into the far turn. Fanjica leads as they pass the half-mile pole. Memories, though, kept close to her. Danish is running strongly, third on the inside. Market Booster has moved up to be fourth. La Confederacion now moving through between horses in fifth. Le Latois now back running in sixth. And then it's Northern Emerald, followed by, on the outside by Yenda. And then Duda, who's got a lot to do. Tiffany's Taylor trails the field. Fanjica turns for home in front. A big opening at the inside now for Danish, who comes storming on through. Danish cut the corner and takes the lead at the 8th pole. Fanjica second, Memories third. Duda closing hard on the far outside. Le Latois, Northern Emerald is also closing quickly. It's Danish now in front. Northern Emerald coming hard on the outside. It's going to be close, and it's going to be Northern Emerald in the final strides to win. Danish was second and Duda third. Owned by Hiram C. Polk Jr. and J. David Richardson. Trained by Bill Mott. Ridden today by Ramon Perez.
And the Grade 1 flower ball. And Bill, besides the great help you had working for you at the time there, no, on a serious note, how special was that victory? Because I know you and David go back a long time. Is there more meaning to that?
Well,
You have a close
you know,
relationship?
there's a lot of meaning to the relationship, and it's very special to win for David. Hiram Polk was a partner on the filly, and they've both been with me for over 30 years, and that part of it is very special. I mean, David has been a mentor to me throughout my career, and but I guess in regard to the horses in that race, there was a lot of things that were special about it. Just the fact that I was at the sale when we picked out Northern Emerald as a yearling, here I think we paid $55,000 for her, and she won the Grade 1 Flower Bowl at Belmont Park. So it just goes to show that you don't have to buy $1 million yearling to get to Grade 1 status in horse racing. I mean, there, you know, we spend a modest amount of money and got a big reward. And besides the training her from the time she was a yearling through her entire career, the jockey that rode her that day was Ramon Perez, who I started out and taught him to ride. And I remember taking him around on the pony on the training track in Saratoga and teaching him how to gallop. And not only did he ride Northern Emerald, actually I believe Ramon had the bug at the time when he was still an apprentice when he rode her in the Grade 1. And so, you know, the whole situation is very memorable and special to me. But you know, it's just one of those cases where you get it from start to finish, and it's really the whole package to do it that way.
I think these are tremendous insights, and again, it underscores, I think, you know, what the public doesn't get to see. They see a horse winning and a result, stories like Graham's, the decisions he had leading up to it, Bill and David going back a long way, you know, buying a horse for $55,000, and you can become part of that whole experience. So there's a lot to it, and I really think it underscores the beauty of this sport. All right, I'm going to just a few more questions before we get out to the audience for the trainers. I'll start with you, Joan. Decisions between owners and trainers. What decisions left up to the trainers? What decisions left up to the owners?
Being I'm training the horse, usually I do know where to place the horse. Oftentimes I'll talk to the owner, like where we'd like to run, like what tracks, that sort of thing. What rider, if they have a preference to a rider. I kind of have to okay it. But, but I like them to have an input on those sorts of things.
Graham?
Yeah, I mean, I take a lot of input as far as picking races. I mean, certainly some owners might know more than others. Brent happens to handicap a lot, and he's, you know, I value his opinion, so I think it's actually worked very well for us in the past as to choosing races, because I look at it from the training point of view, whereas he looks at it from the figures and the numbers, and I think that's worked very well for us.
Dallas?
You know, I think that's pretty basic. You know, most of the people that I train for, they kind of let you ride who you want to ride. And, you know, some of the bigger races we talk about, but I think most of the people kind of lean on my judgment and, you know, which way we should go. But, you know, things are talked about a little, you know, to some degree, but a lot of it's on the trainer.
What about you, Bill? Does it depend on the knowledge base of the owner, maybe, if they've been in the game a long time?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy discussing it, you know, as long as I certainly get a vote, you know. Yeah. I mean, you know, you want to feel like you're not overwhelmed by information, but, you know, I think as far as where to run, I mean, I think it's pretty basic when you're starting out with a young horse. You're going in the maiden races. It's just kind of a matter at that point in time when you're going to run. Are you going to run them short, long, or on the turf, or, you know, you know, generally we try to ride the best riders that we can possibly get. And but I think when there becomes more discussion, I think after you've won a few races, if you're lucky enough to get a horse that probably reaches the stakes level, then there's a little more to talk about. Then you actually need to, you know, are we going to place the horse in a Grade 1 at Belmont Park, or are we going to go for a Grade 3 or a listed stake at a lesser racetrack? And I think there's, you know, there's always pros and cons to whatever that decision might be. Just, you know, to get the horse to be a stake winner, or do we, you know, how much value do we put on maybe just getting a placing in the Grade 1? So, but I enjoy, particularly with somebody like David or somebody that's been in the business for a long time. I mean, we can, you know, we can discuss the, you know, and be very frank about what the horse can do and what he can't do. I think that's you know, things that are realistic for that particular individual, and things that aren't, that we shouldn't do, that's probably actually going to set us back.
Thanks, Simon. Too, you said about the knowledge base. Does
Sure.
it depend on knowledge base? I think that's also important. Like I said, I came at this from a handicapping standpoint, and I had zero knowledge about the horse itself. And I would never, you know, even, you know, think about talking to Graham about, you know, the horse's condition, or how he should train, when he should train, you know, those types of things. That's totally up to Graham. We just talk about, you know, maybe where, based on all of that information that we discuss about maybe where we would put the horse. But, you know, some owners, you know, don't really want to have a lot of involvement in that, and some do. But I do think it's important that you be realistic about your knowledge base and not try to, you know, dictate things that you really don't have.
What if you want to learn though? I mean, you need a relationship where a trainer can bring you along.
Absolutely, that would be part of the communication process of finding a trainer that would help you in that regard, and you know, be comfortable having you around and doing those things.
Do you think that's important, Graham? Educating, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some people might be more willing to learn. I mean, look, I think ultimately it's extremely important that you find a trainer that you're comfortable with. You need to get along. You need to be able to talk. If you're not going to be able to communicate, you're probably not going to get along. So, you know, I think you need to find somebody that you have a lot of confidence in and somebody that you trust and you get along with.
All right, we're getting close to the end here, so we're going to get out some questions. But as promised, the newlywed game, we're going to get to that right now. And I'm going to ask the owners first. We'll start with you, Roger, and go down. In one sentence, I want you to describe the perfect trainer.
One who takes your horses and gets the most of them.
Brent?
One who doesn't mind me having my nose in the condition book.
Chuck?
I'd say dedicated and honest.
Yeah.
David?
Ditto.
The same? Trainers, you get a turn. Joan, we'll start with you at the end.
What makes the best owner?
Yeah, in one sentence. Perfect owner in one sentence.
Yeah.
And you can't say one that never calls.
One that has confidence in you. I think that's the most important thing, that has confidence in your decisions.
Graham?
Same thing. I mean, I want to train for people that aren't going to second guess me. I make the best decisions for people that don't second guess what I do.
I mean, they hire you for a job, correct?
Right.
I mean, when you go to the dentist, unless you went to dental school, you're not telling the guy how to pull your teeth out, correct? Dallas?
I guess that maybe they could take the good with the bad, you know. Just sometimes there's bad news, and everybody's working hard trying to do the right thing, and sometimes things happen that are out of our control. They're athletes, they get injuries, and we're all doing the best to try to keep them healthy and bring a good product to the races. Sometimes they get hurt, and we have to deliver the bad news, and, you know, it's great when a guy can just take it and say, hey, you know, we're going to move on, everything's going to be okay. Like this filly that we showed you, she got hurt 3 or 4 times, and Chuck was like, okay, I'll heal her up, send her back to you. That's the way it went.
Bill, you've trained for a host of owners from all over the world, and what would you describe as the best
Well,
owner?
David coached me on the answer a little bit. He says, one that pays the bills. But I think it's always good. Actually, I think it's very good if anybody that I can speak to frankly and openly and honestly, and if I, you know, that I want to be able to speak to somebody that I don't have to sugarcoat everything, and I just want to, look, this is how it is, and sometimes I'm not sure how it sounds coming out of my mouth, but
Right.
I only know one way to say it. And if they want a little sugar on it, I mean, they need to go somewhere else, because I can't, you know, I only know one way to put it, and that's the way I see it.
It is what it is.
And, you know, I like to be optimistic. I mean, I think I want to have, you know, give every horse their opportunity, and sometimes you have to wait longer with some. Sometimes you're able to identify a horse's ability and their talent level early on, and some I'm not comfortable with until maybe the horse has raced a few times. So, you know, I don't think you can jump to conclusions and try to know where you're at with every horse right away.
David, you want to say something real quick?
I think it's really important, though, if you're going to own the horses, that you have to be able to, what's that, the Tom Cruise, Jack Nicholson movie, you know, you can't handle the truth. I think you better be able to handle the truth. And that doesn't, I mean, I don't want somebody that's negative about things all the time, but I remember I ran a filly named Catch the Bouquet. I had a partner, and we named it that way because the horse was born on my partner's day. My partner's daughter got married, so they were really emotionally involved with this horse. And Jerry Bailey rode this horse at Belmont. And you probably don't remember this horse, Bill, but she had the lead, turned for home, and then, boy, they ganged her good. And so I called him afterwards, and he said, well, Jerry thinks we're going to have to get pretty creative with this horse. In Mott speak, that means she probably is not going to do it at Belmont Park for what we wanted. And so we took her to Louisiana, won 3 races with her, and that's what I mean about, you know, picking different kind of spots. I moved a horse this year that had run second here in a maiden special at Keeneland, but I wanted to keep her as a broodmare, but it was clear she wasn't going to do in a major circuit, but won 2 races at Belterra up in Cincinnati. I mean, at least she's a winner, and I'm going to keep her. And, you know, so I think you have to be able to handle that and deal with it, because otherwise you force a trainer to be almost dishonest with you, which is not what you want, if you can't handle, you know, the truth about your horse. And so I think for trainers, it seems to me you got to have that balance between not too negative, but not having to sugarcoat it.
I think it makes a trainer's job much easier when you can talk frankly and freely and know you're not going to offend somebody. I mean, you know, none of us want to hear bad news, but if you can make it as easy as possible, you know, when somebody gives it to you, it's a lot easier to give it out, or give the story out as you see it.
That's some great insight, and I can certainly see why you're all very successful teams. You get the feeling it's more than just a client-client relationship. These are teams that have become friends and long-time friends over the years. So we're going to take some opportunity. We have about 7 minutes left to get some questions from the floor. So first question, Alyssa, you have a question from the floor?
Yeah, I'm going to walk on over here if I can scoot by. Excuse me. Sir, what's your question?
I'm Bob. Just a quick question about sort of the negotiation that might go on between the owner and trainer in this. You know, say the trainer's training good caliber horse, thinks, okay, this horse really belongs in this grade 2 over here. Maybe it's a $100,000 purse. Owner says, I think this horse belongs in the Breeders' Cup $1 million purse. You got maybe a 70% chance of winning the $100,000 or $200,000 race, maybe a 5% chance of, in your mind, of running that Breeders' Cup. What's the negotiation like in that hypothetical, and how do you sort of work that through?
Who wants to take that, Graham and Brent?
I mean, I think it comes down to your relationship with the trainer. I mean, it's certainly something that we went through. You know, and ultimately, I think as an owner, you know, you do pay the bills, and if you want to have a certain amount of pleasure on a big day, I'm not going to take that away from you, but it's, you know, you also want to be realistic, and it's all about trying to win races. That's where you have the most fun. So I think it comes down to the discussion you have with your client.
And I think you know, as you go through, I think you need to take responsibility for your decisions. In your scenario, if you have a 5% chance of winning the $1 million race, you have 70% chance of winning a $100,000 race. You know, 70,000, 50,000, if you really do the math on it, you kind of have to make a decision on what are you comfortable with, and if you go run in that race, you only have a 5% chance of winning. You got to be realistic about the fact that you only had a 5% chance of winning and be able to take the bad news, which is you didn't do as well as you would have hoped. If you're going to then turn to the trainer and say, why didn't you talk me into going in the other race, that becomes a problem. So I think it's a matter of being responsible for your own decision making and having input from both sides. There are definitely times where he said, look, this horse isn't as good as you think he is. You know, we need to go lower. If he makes it to that level, great. And if he says that to me, I will listen to it. But you know, I mean, but most of the time we kind of just talk it through and make decisions. Just take responsibility for the decision and don't second guess it either way.
Sometimes I think you have to take turns. I think it's a little bit of a trade-off. I mean, I think naturally when you start out, the trainer's probably going to pick the spots, and you get to that point where, you could go to this race or this race, and I think if you want to go to that race that's a grade 1 and it's a 5% chance, well, hopefully it's a good 5% chance if you're going to make that decision. But I think every once in a while, guy wants to run in the Kentucky Derby or the Breeders' Cup. I think you've earned your way in there. They're accepted into the race, and you're going to be 20-25 to 1, and the owner wants to run. I mean, I think you've got to give them that opportunity. But if it doesn't work out, then next time I think it's the trainer's turn, and maybe we drop back a notch, and we kind of start over again, and eventually, hopefully, you get into that situation again where, oh boy, now it's time to go to the grade 1, and maybe you'll both agree at that time. So it's, I think that's the good thing about having a relationship with the with an owner is that you can talk through those things and you know, it'll work out in the end.
Any other questions from the floor?
Was the question for me? Neil Drysdale trained AP Indy, I believe. I loaned a workhorse so he could work with him when he got ready for the Belmont. That was my claim to AP Indy. So I actually I had a very nice horse that I let Neil breeze with that particular day. But he turned out to be a very good horse and probably a very good sire. But that's the only thing I had to do with him. As far as some of the better horses that I've had, of course, I was lucky enough to have a horse called Theatrical, who was my first Grade 1 winner, or not my first Grade 1 winner, pardon me, first Breeders' Cup winner and first champion, and he was very good to me. He won 6 Grade 1s that particular year, and then I wound up training a lot of his offspring, and of course I was lucky enough to get the Immortal Cigar, and who just passed away this last week. So I've been blessed with a lot of good ones, and you know, that's kind of what good horses are, what makes good trainers, and I've been lucky enough to have my share of them.
We have time for one last question. Yeah, right here.
Hi, Rob Levinsky from Kenwood Racing. I commend you all on a fine presentation. My question real quick to ask you all, or any of you who care to comment, is a little bit about the economics for people in the business. What I mean by that specifically is looking at sales. If you look at the sales, and several of you referred to this, and so many horses are bought in the, let's just say, $25,000 to $150,000 range that have a great deal of success. And the statistics show that, in fact, if you go up to $1 million, you spend 10 times the money and you maybe double your chances of winning. So from an economic perspective, why does anyone spend $1 million for horses at sales? From pure economics, aside from ego, would any of you recommend $100,000 for a horse?
You guys want to pick up on that? You're active at the sales.
Yeah. I just say, well, if it fits your budget, you're not in it. But I'm racing mostly homebreds, which is a whole different risk. And I do increase my chances for the trainers because I'm usually racing fillies, and third or better is good for me because we get what they call black type if you stakes place. So you've increased the value. So I don't have to have that little 5% win. I just want to get the black type. But I think the money thing is you probably want to take the $1 million and maybe try to buy 4 horses instead of 1 just to increase your odds a little bit. But, you know, some people want to play at that higher game, and they should.
Joan, what would you do at the sales with $1 million?
Buy 3 or 4.
By 3 or 4?
Yeah.
Grant?
I think you
buy
can
nice
buy all
horses.
kinds of good horses though
Yeah.
for less than that. I mean, you had a horse that won the other day, bought for $1,000, right? That wins, you know.
It depends on probably what your goals are, I would imagine. Now, you know, some of the people that go and buy the real expensive horses, they either have, some of them have a program where they're trying to either, if it's a colt, develop a stallion, and to get the good athlete with the good pedigree, you're going to have to pay top money. But if that horse turns out to be a Grade 1 winner, then you've got a stallion prospect. If you're just looking for a racehorse to have fun with, you might as well stay in that range between 25 and 100,000, because you can buy plenty of good racehorses with that type for that kind of money. But when at the end of the day, when they're done racing, do you have a stallion prospect? Probably not. And the same with a filly. I've seen, you know, for example, when Mr. Paulson got in the business years ago, he bought a lot of high-priced fillies, a lot of real high-priced yearling fillies. Some of them didn't turn out as racehorses, but it gave him a good nucleus for his bloodstock. But that was his goal, was to have a broodmare band. Now, if you're just buying one to race and you're not looking to be a breeder, then there's not much point in spending that $1 million for a filly either. You can buy plenty of good race-type fillies for under $100,000.
That's why everybody's got a shot.
Right.
Everybody's got it.
Greatest
Everybody's
game
got
in
a
the world.
shot.
And that's a great point to end on, Dallas. Unfortunately, we're out of time here. I know we could sit here for another couple hours with these tremendous panelists. I mean, you've had some insight here that you probably can't get anywhere else. Big round of applause for all our panelists.
Good job, Bill.